Well, welcome to our first virtual Impact Insights. Thanks to COVID-19, we have taken our event global. With me today, I have representatives from the ECCO Network, a group of independent PR and communication agencies across the globe, of which Impact is the Australian and New Zealand representative. I would like to ask my guests to quickly introduce themselves, starting with you, Kelly, in the US.
I'm Kelly O'Malley, one of the principals of O'Malley Hanson. We have offices in Chicago, New York, St. Louis, and Los Angeles. We do work really across consumer, corporate, issues management, social digital, influencer, and employee engagement. And we're thrilled to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for joining us at 7 o'clock in the morning. Over to you, Ollie.
Hi there, I'm Ollie Foster. I'm the Chief Executive of Pagefield. We're based in the middle of Soho in London. When we're not at home. We're an integrated campaigning agency, so that brings in a combination of public affairs, stakeholder relations, corporate and consumer comms, lots of crisis management, and increasingly quite a lot of design and creative work, as well as social.
Fantastic, welcome. And Boris in Germany.
Yes, Boris Barth. I'm a senior consultant with Advice Partners. We're located in Berlin, in Germany, and we're offering strategic advice and communications management advice in mainly the sectors crisis and public affairs.
Fantastic. And Monique in the Netherlands.
Yes, I'm Monique Hendricks with Bex Communicatie. We have agencies in Eindhoven, in the south of the Netherlands, and in Amsterdam, of course. We are a strategic communications consultancy agency specialized in crisis communication, reputation, corporate communications, also engagement and everything that has to do with that. We do a little bit of campaigns, but mainly on topics that consider issues, and we do a lot of training and coaching, and we have a specific Impact Academy for that, and I'm sitting in the Impact Academy right now.
And a great name too, Monique.
Thank you.
Well, let's stick with you, Monique, and just I know we've all been very busy over the last couple of months with COVID. So if we could just have a quick wrap up of what's going on in the Netherlands and then go around the globe and what does bounce back look like for you and how far away is it?
Yeah. Well, regulations are a lot less harsh right now already in the Netherlands. We had intelligent lockdown, as our administration called it, and now group gatherings are already permitted again for 250 up until 250 persons. There are lots of governmental financial supports going on here. So as in terms of the economic situation, I think that the big blows still have to come, but we already see that in perspective of the railway companies and the aviation companies and tourism. There are a lot of and companies already in a little bit of danger there. And we have right now not so many hospitalizations anymore for COVID-19. So we're happy with that, of course, but we are expecting a -6% economic growth this year. So that's a short wrap up of how the situation in the Netherlands is, and I'm happy that we can go cross borders again in Europe. Well, it's limited still, but we can go a little bit cross borders already.
Yeah, fantastic. And Ollie, how's it like in the UK?
Lockdown is easing at the moment. By this time next week, pretty much everything will be reopened apart from the likes of gyms and beauty salons. This weekend is actually the sort of big reopening of pubs and restaurants. There's a debate about whether that should be happening on a Saturday as opposed to a Monday or Tuesday. So there's a bit of nervousness.
We've seen what's been going on your beaches over there.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Well, it's rare to have such good weather here. So people have been taking full advantage. As it happens now, the weather is shocking. It's cold and windy again. In terms of cases, they appear to have sort of stabilised to an extent. There is still a murmur of them across the country. Some parts of the country, like London, seem to have sort of gotten over very much the worst of it, and in parts of the country very much eradicated. Local flare-ups are happening. So there is a case today in Leicester where it appears that the city itself is now going to have its own lockdown, and I think that's been happening in other parts of Europe, including potentially Germany, where there have been very localised lockdowns reappearing. In terms of the economic impact, I think whereas the government here has been heavily criticised for A, probably going a bit too late with the lockdown, and B, almost allowing care homes to struggle alone, which is why the death rate has been so significant amongst the elderly. Where they have come in for a lot of praise is the economic package. And whether they're correct or not, what they are saying to us is that the UK has probably led the world in the overall package that they've given to business. As I say, I'm not sure whether that's entirely correct. Others on this call may be able to judge, but it's certainly been an impressive package of measures through furlough, which will continue until October, with an element of companies paying a little bit more from August, plus a whole series of loan schemes, all of which have been very popular. But borrowing clearly now is at sort of epic proportions. The Prime Minister today has been making big announcements on a building programme, £5 billion worth of investment from the state into hospitals and schools and prisons and roads. And one of the things that they have been very keen to stress is that whereas they've been supporting businesses and particularly jobs, what they have not been doing, and there's been a high-profile case in Virgin Atlantic, is propping up companies that would otherwise fail. And they've been holding firm to that. And so I think that the concern now is, when do those job losses come? When does that hit in a post-furlough world? And which are the sectors that are going to be most affected? And it's clear that hospitality is which is a huge sector here in the UK, is going to be really severely hit. Yeah,
it's similar here in Australia as well. How is it in Germany, Boris?
Well, I'd say that there's a more or less well coordination between the 16 federal states who are autonomous in their acting. Ollie already touched upon local outbreaks, and this has been linked in the past few days with a big outbreak in the meat industry facility. And now we see a debate linking working conditions in, let's say, low-paid jobs where you cannot have social distancing, which are elemental to feeding the population, and with people who come from other countries, migrant workers living in bad conditions, not well paid and exposed to COVID-19 in a more severe way. So we have discussions there. We have also a stimulus package that was passed by Parliament yesterday and which will be in effect as of tomorrow. And the biggest part is a lowering of the VAT for 6 months until the end of the year by 3 percentage points. So it will be lowered from 19 to 16 and from 7 to 5 for less taxed goods. This is the key element, as well as cash for family with children. We also see a discussion how to best link ecological change to government subsidies. I think we've seen that as well with the aviation industry in France, for example. So no flights which are not necessary or which cannot be catered in a sensible way by train, for example. And we've also had these debates here, but the only tangible outcome I see so far is that they raise the incentive to buy electric vehicles. This is something we see. And overall, we expect right now, I mean, this is subject to change basically on a daily basis. We expect a V-shaped recoveries. But as far as I understand, the government says and the administrator says they must get worse before it can get better. So as we've already heard, we don't know if this has been the low we all expected or if it's going to be worse after the summer at some point. And obviously the same is true, as Ollie said, and I think Monique and Kelly agreed as well. Hospitality, tourism are hardest hit because it's so unknown how it's going to function over the next weeks, months until the end of the year.
Yeah. And Kelly, what about in the US?
Well, we have got our case numbers are surging throughout much of the United States, including many of the states that were among the first to reopen. We have just 2.5 million cases and 125,000 people have died. Obviously, as Ollie said, it's been very focused on the elderly. And we're hitting in about 32 states, we're growing cases. So it's not a great story here. And we have quite a bit of, 42 million people on unemployment. So we have got some real work to do here. And it's a really a hot spot sort of thing. We've got the South and the West part of the United States that are really being hit. And it feels like we have, hundreds of curves that we need to flatten, not just one. So not the best story here.
So we're seeing a lot of Black Lives Matters protests, and we've been having our own protests here too. Kelly, has that taken over the news there in the US, or has it seemed to have calmed down a bit now?
I'd say it's still, front page news and all of the kind of stories that go around that. So stories on defunding the police and white privilege and the new demands and statues coming down and colleges changing names of buildings on campuses. And then, of course, how companies are responding. COVID and all of the bad news around COVID and the politicization of who's wearing masks and who's not wearing masks is the story of the month and probably the summer. But we are still seeing quite a lot of protests are still happening, but not as it was in those kind of first couple of days after George Floyd.
And what's happening in the Netherlands and the UK and in Germany? Has the Black Lives Matter movement been big there as well? Ollie, maybe you could answer that.
Yeah, it was, and I suppose still is. I mean, the similar to what Kelly just said, that there was definitely a good week, if not 2 weeks, of quite intense protests. And actually, there was another protest this Saturday in central London, but it sort of it didn't go unnoticed, but it wasn't the scale of previous. And the sad thing is that the initial protest quite quickly turned into controversy around very small but noticeable elements of violence and pulling down of statues, which to the mainstream supporter of Black Lives Matter, the kind of person who wouldn't go out and protest, but absolutely supports the general direction of what that campaign is trying to achieve. They lost the locker room, I think, in some respects, in the way they did that. The media turned against them, and sort of the average punter questioned their motives. And I think what has happened since is, I think boardrooms across the country and indeed smaller companies have absolutely sat up and listened to the most important message around Black Lives Matters, but what our politicians have actually done since, and actually there's been a sort of sense of kind of unanimity on it. Actually, is they all support the general direction of travel of that campaign, but the campaigning body itself, there's very few who in our political life, and I myself included, who would support them. They are for the downfall of capitalism, they're for defunding the police, and so on and so forth. So there has been quite finally an intelligent separation here in the last week or two of the aims and ambitions of Black Lives Matter as a campaign, where there is universal support, versus some elements of the campaign that have come in, particularly from the far left, and have damaged the reputation of what was otherwise a very popular movement.
And have any clients asked you for any help with messaging around this at all?
Yeah, they have. Not lots, but some have. I mean, I think there are. There's been a variety of kind of approaches from clients and other non-clients who wanted our help. Those, historical organisations or older companies that do have some sort of baggage clearly were very concerned from a crisis point of view about how they would handle this issue. There have been others who wanted conversations, who perhaps quite understandably wanted to understand whether they needed to say or do anything about it, but actually there wasn't really necessarily a requirement for them to say anything publicly. It was more about wanting them needing to focus on their internal policies. I think there has been it's calmed down now, but in the immediate aftermath, there was a sort of flurry of people who wanted to just say something. And my view as a comms professional is, unless you've got something of substance to say, is it really necessary for you to comment? Because actually it could fly back in your face by being opportunistic.
Absolutely. And Kelly, you're nodding your head over there in Chicago. Have you been helping clients with any messaging around Black Lives Matter movement, diversity?
We have. We've actually worked with a client, a new client, who, to Ollie's point, put up some words, put up the black square on Blackout Tuesday, and then had employees go to their social media pages and say that's not how they, that it was inconsistent, they were being hypocritical. And it was really interesting problem. You've got, there's two sides to every story. You've got folks that are saying untruths on social media, and then how do you respond to that when you've got this long list of things, and do you really want to litigate everything on Instagram? And the answer to that is probably
not.
No.
That's right. Monique, what has been the hardest or the hardest challenge for you during COVID from an agency or a client perspective?
Well, as from our agency perspective, I find it very difficult that we were all working at home and that it was not that easy to get a good engagement, a good contact with all of your employees. And of course, everyone was, trying to settle down in the beginning, in the early stages of this crisis. So I find that quite difficult. On the other hand, we managed quite quickly, and some people found out that they had more time and that they were more efficient at home, and others were having more difficulties with homeschooling and managing all kinds of tasks. But we got used to that quite quickly. And then what I found very nice to see, and I think we're going to get back to that as well, but there was a lot of innovation going on as well. So we learned doing webinars quicker than we would have done without COVID-19. We developed a crisis communications model, a new model to divide the COVID-19 communications into 4 different stages, and we helped our clients looking forward already. And we set up an engagement program because we found that it was difficult for our people, but also our clients came to us with questions about that. Well, they are working at home for 3 weeks, and how am I going to manage that? So we set up engagement programs for our clients. So actually, after the first stages, we were quite dynamic in the office, and we developed new products, new models. And clients came to us to reach out to us. For example, also a big municipality, their department had been very busy with all the COVID-19 communications, and they needed extra help. So we set up a kind of a department for them, separate from their own department, to make sure that they were able to go forward and that they had a new strategy with to talk about all the regulations in the municipality, but also to help the mayor be empathic to the population in the municipality. So we had new clients as well. So so half of our agency, the work sometimes was stopped also by our clients, but on the other half, we had some extra internal communications work on engagement and on crisis communications, and some new clients specific on the topic.
And in Germany, Boris, what was the biggest challenge for your agency or for your clients over the last couple of months?
Well, I agree with Monique that the working from the distance was tough. I mean, not so much that people aren't used to work from home, be in a home office, but they didn't have a choice now because we weren't allowed to go to the office. And we installed a rotation roster so that only once per week you could come in, check into the office, go through your mail or whatever, talk to people who were not all here. Keeping the spirits up from the distance as well, because you didn't know how does everyone on the personal level cope with the situation, with all these depressing pictures, news, uncertainties, both personal, income-wise. I don't know, like, what is your spouse, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever, how do they cope with the situation? So getting an overview, like how is the personal life going on as well, was more difficult because you didn't see the people. On the upside, I'd say that clients have maybe more reason to believe in the importance of communication in critical situations. Absolutely. So I agree as well what Monique says, internal communication. Also, who is now in the driver's seat, right? Now you have a difficult situation to address and you need to convey messages. So maybe people who would the staff would be more engaged in, I don't know, maybe like write a weekly newsletter is all of a sudden a very important outlet within an organization. And I think there's maybe a rethinking in that respect that we can capitalize on and that we can use in a post-corona world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the working from home has just been an issue globally, right? We've all had to adjust working from home. Ollie, best thing that's come out of the last couple of months from a client work perspective?
I think probably three things, if I may, but they're all sort of interlinked. But firstly, loyalty. I've been so impressed at the loyalty of our clients, some of whom have had some very difficult situations to handle, and we've shown a huge degree of flexibility with those clients in terms of how we change the fees and everything else during this difficult period. And we were very proactive in the beginning in March in offering to clients essentially between mid-March and end of April, if they wanted us to do anything that wasn't within our scope, for them not to worry about coming to us and asking for us to send a separate fee for that we would do whatever we had to do to support them. And so there was a loyalty from us, but also more importantly, loyalty from them. Secondly, I think what has been, it is linked to that loyalty, but I think because of the reputation we've built up over the last 10 years, we've been so heartened and impressed by the number of people who've sort of come back out of the woodwork, as it were, whether it be them themselves wanting to be our client or them introducing us to people who they know need our support during this crisis. So a lot of the new work that we've taken on has not come about because we've necessarily been out looking for it in the last few months, but because people have been told, go and speak to Ollie and Mark at Pagefield because they'll be able to help you through X, Y, and Z. And thirdly, it is that flexibility. I mean, I think all of you were about to conclude. I think you're about to conclude that despite the sort of early challenges around working from home, I don't want to put words into everyone's mouth, but personally and for Pagefield, it has been an absolute revelation. And only last week, we conducted a survey of the whole team, which came back a week or two ago. We've introduced a new policy from this Monday, which is a fully baked in, flexible working policy where whoever you are, any member of the team, you decide your diary. You come into the office whenever you want. You don't need to feel compelled to, other than once a week on a Tuesday, we'll all have a lunch together in the office, which we'll lay on and we'll have as a team meeting. Once a month, at least, we'll do a social. We've allocated some budget for people to spend on their working from home environment. So, whether they need a better chair or whatever, and some other small but significant, not insignificant measures just to make the huge benefits that we think we've gained from flexible working properly baked into the future. We're trialing it, and we'll tweak it along the way. We'll trial it until the end of the year, but I'm very confident that will be the future for us, and we will continue to have an office, but we will rarely be in it in the way that we used to be.
It's exciting, isn't it?
Really exciting. Yeah.
No, I think it's going to change the way we work as well here at Impact. Kelly, best thing that's come out over the last couple of months for your clients or for your agency?
Well, I think we really believe that the next couple of years are going to be really just such a unique time for business. I think both in the U.S. and probably abroad. And just the private sector is going to there's going to be so much more responsibility on companies and brands to share, I think, leadership with what's going on in the world and help us recover from what happened this year. And it's really going to, I think, lead to a whole new kind of era of business and the new style of communications. What we've seen from many of our clients and some clients that we and folks that we just have seen in the business community is they are stepping up. We've seen folks really come and say that they're ready to contribute. We're talking to our clients about how you figure out what the next 90 days, how you make decisions over the next 90 days and what that means for the rest of the year, because I think a lot of organizations are really confused about how to contribute. So corporate contribution planning is what, when we talk to our clients about being able to help them in that area, we've heard a resounding yes. And a lot of it is very employee driven. Folks are standing up and and really weighing in on things that are going on in our country in ways they never have before. And a lot of it is because they're trying to stand up for their employees. So I think it's a really exciting time in communications, and we really hope that some good comes out of all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. So wrapping up, that time went really quickly. What are the opportunities? Where do you think the opportunities are for clients over the next 3 to 6 months? Boris?
I hope that will be in the issue of crisis resilience. So checking how is my organization affected of all these measures, not even lockdown, but also smaller measures, because we expect there will be some kind of restrictions coming up. We have influenza in the autumn, in the winter. We might have a mutated coronavirus. How will we deal with a second outbreak? And what did we learn as we were overwhelmed and couldn't believe what's happening, and all of a sudden everything was locked down? Do we have pandemic plans, for example? Do we have ideas how we can shift production, shift people to the right places? Do we talk to everyone who might be in fear of going outside, stepping outside in the street? But now we have better arguments to embrace these fears. I think this is something that has to be taken into consideration. And also think about how can we all shape clients as well, the new normal, the new work, like Ollie said, for example. All of a sudden it's a revelation that people from having to work from home, they enjoy working from home, and how can we shape this new work life?
And Monique, where do you think the opportunities are in the Netherlands for your clients?
Yeah, the crisis resilience is a very important factor, as Boris mentioned it, and we want to help our clients to think about that. So we've created some sessions for them to look forward into the future together with us. So we, as a sort of a host in that discussion with them, and adding creativity and other perspectives in that discussion. And we've already done 2 or 3 of those sessions, and we think that we can help our clients with lots more in that way, to see how we can be resilient in this crisis, how when COVID or another virus comes back, how are we going to be prepared for that, but also how can we maintain the good things out of this crisis? How can we be more ecologically and economic resilient? So both ways, not only in terms of earning money, but also doing that in a more sustainable way in the future. And we are trying to help our clients with that. And they rewarded us with a lot of back in business videos. So we made a whole series of videos, and we are trying to inspire our clients and our communities here with those back in business stories of our clients, and how are they thinking about their future. So I think although there is of course a lot of personal sorrow, there is also a lot of economic and communications perspective created in the last few weeks and months.
Yeah, fantastic. And Kelly, what about in the US? What are the opportunities for your clients?
We really do think that that obligations for clients have changed, and how we act this year is going to impact the years to come. And so we're working with our clients to look at how they're doing their charitable. Can they invest differently, find new partners, make their dollars go further by being more impactful, and think through tangible, measurable actions, because we really do believe that it's going to be a show me time like it's never been before.
Yeah, do then tell, right?
Right.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of work with our clients on tone of voice around this time too. So we help them, what tone should they have had through the last 4 months, and what sort of tone do they need coming out the other side. So it's going to be very important, not only doing before telling, but also how you tell it, so, and what tone you use. I'm going to let you have the last say, Oliver. What opportunities are there for your clients in the UK?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd go back to the word loyalty, and which has been important to us as a company. But consumers can be very loyal, right, to the brands that they respect, they enjoy, and they look up to. And I'm not going to name names, but there are some brands who've had a good crisis, and there are other brands that have had a terrible crisis. Definitely. And in a large part because they have not shown loyalty to their own teams. And that's been particularly the case here in the UK, where some companies jumped too soon to fire staff before the government rolled out its full sort of program of support. And I think those brands will suffer significantly in the aftermath, whereas those who have been shown to be very open to flexibility with their teams. And indeed, we've got some cases here in the UK at the moment where some famous brands and entrepreneurs are handing back the furlough money because in the end they didn't need it, because the company managed to fare better during the crisis than they did anticipated. And again, those brands will be repaid with that loyalty by consumers. So there's a huge opportunity there. The other sort of area that I've been thinking about in the last few weeks is I think it's really confusing at the moment to understand what consumers really do want to do. There's all sorts of opinion polls flying around in this country, and I'm sure it's the same in your markets, where majority of people 1 minute say they are scared of lockdown easing, and then in the same breath they're saying they're scared about losing their job because they can't go out because they're locked down. There's a lot of confusion in people's minds, and I think that we wouldn't normally, as a communications consultancy, recommend lots of our clients going into sort of opinion polling exercises, but I do think that is going to be more needed in the coming weeks and months, so that people can properly understand, companies can properly understand whether the new products they're going to bring or the approach they're going to be taking is actually going to tie in with what consumers want during what is a rapidly changing and unpredictable environment.
Yeah, watching people's behaviours and understanding people's behaviours is going to be really important over the next few months. That's for sure. That's for sure. Well, look at that. I'm bang on half an hour. So thank you all so very much for joining us for our virtual Impact Insights event. Stay safe and yeah, have a really good day, night, wherever you are.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you for organising. Thank you very much.
Take care.
See you later.